Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into something that, well, it affects almost every organization, doesn't it? How to handle all this uncertainty, political, technological, economic, it's constant.
It really is. And the default reaction often is to kind of pull back, play defense.
Exactly. But what if being too cautious is actually the riskier move in the long run?
Well, that's the core idea in the DCRO Institute's Building a Better Board Series paper, Strategic Risk Governance in Uncertain Times. They make a compelling case.
Okay.
They argue that this purely defensive stance, while it feels safe, can lead to something they call competitive fade.
Competitive fade. So you sort of slowly lose ground.
Precisely. You become so focused on just avoiding the bad stuff that you completely miss the chances to actually move forward, to innovate.
So playing it too safe might actually mean you're guaranteeing a slow decline? That's counterintuitive.
It can be, yeah. But think about it. If your competitors are willing to take calculated risks while you're just trying to hold steady,
They'll eventually pull ahead. Okay, so if someone listening wants to start shifting away from that purely defensive mode, what's like a first step?
a really crucial first step is to consciously challenge how we usually talk about risk. It's almost always negative, right? About loss.
Loss avoidance.
Exactly. Instead, start trying to frame risk discussions around the potential upside. What opportunities could this uncertainty unlock if we approach it smartly? It's a real mindset shift.
Right, from risk avoidance to more like informed risk engagement.
Informed risk-taking, yes.
Yeah.
Using it as a strategic tool, not just something to be minimized.
The paper also talks about the sheer scale of the disruption we're seeing. Geopolitical shifts, AI breakthroughs, energy transitions. It's a lot.
It absolutely is. And it's understandable why boards might just default to, survival mode.
Survival mode.
Yeah, when things feel chaotic and threatening, our brains are wired to focus on the immediate danger. It narrows your focus.
Like putting blinders on.
Sort of, yeah. You're just dealing with what's right in front of you, not looking ahead at the long-term strategy or the potential opportunities over the horizon.
And that constant state of alert, that must take a toll on decision-making capacity. The paper mentions increased cognitive load.
It does, massively. When you're constantly scanning for threats, your brain literally has less capacity left for complex analysis, for creative thinking, for seeing the bigger picture.
So making nuanced strategic decisions becomes much harder.
Much harder. And that's exactly when you might miss a key opportunity, or when a more agile competitor, maybe one less burdened by that fear, can make a move.
It's a bit of a paradox then, isn't it? The more uncertain things get, the more you need that long-term opportunity-seeking view, but the harder it is to maintain.
That's the challenge. And the paper digs into why boards sometimes struggle with this, looking at the psychology of risk itself.
Okay, what's a key insight there?
Well, one thing is just how powerfully loss aversion affects us. Our intuitive brain, the fast-thinking part, reacts strongly to perceived threats. It prioritizes immediate safety.
Over potential future gains.
Often, yes. Even if the potential gain is much larger than the potential loss, the fear of the loss can dominate the decision. It's a deep-seated bias.
And then you add the group dynamic in the boardroom. Groupthink comes up in the paper. How does that play in?
Groupthink. That's a big one. The natural human desire for consensus, for harmony within the group.
Can actually be detrimental.
It can, because it might lead the board to suppress dissenting views or to avoid potentially controversial ideas, even if those ideas are innovative or strategically sound.
Yeah.
You end up with safe decisions that don't really move the needle.
So avoiding conflict might actually mean avoiding the best path forward.
Sometimes, yes. Embracing constructive debate and dissent is actually crucial for uncovering those better, perhaps less obvious strategic options.
The paper also introduces this idea of risk personalities, individual differences in how people approach risk.
Right. This adds another layer. Everyone on the board has their own innate comfort level with risk and uncertainty. Some are naturally cautious, others more adventurous, you could say.
And the mix of those individuals creates the board's overall.
Collective risk personality, exactly. And that overall personality can either be a strength, if it incorporates diverse viewpoints, or a weakness if it becomes too tilted one way, either too cautious or perhaps even too reckless, or just stuck because of disagreement.
So understanding that collective tendency is pretty vital, how can boards get a better handle on their own risk personality?
It starts with awareness, having open conversations about risk appetite, about why people feel the way they do about certain risks.
Making the implicit explicit.
Yes, and actively seeking out those different perspectives during discussions. Maybe even assigning someone the role of devil's advocate to deliberately challenge the consensus view.
That could help counteract the pull towards groupthink.
It definitely can. It helps ensure you're not just settling for the easiest answer, but really stress testing your assumptions.
So if a board understands its own dynamics and biases, the paper suggests they can start to see uncertainty differently, not just as a threat.
Exactly. Less as a barrier, more as a potential source of strategic advantage if you're prepared.
How do you make that leap, though, from threat perception to seeing opportunity?
It involves actively trying to understand the connections between different disruptions, seeing how political shifts might enable new technologies or how economic changes might create new market needs. It's about moving from just reacting to anticipating.
And that's where strategic foresight comes in, thinking about different possible futures.
Yes, strategic foresight and scenario planning are key tools mentioned. Instead of trying to predict the future, you prepare for a range of plausible futures.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about the H-E-B example in the paper, the U.S. grocery chain. They apparently did extensive scenario planning, including for pandemics, long before COVID hit.
So when it happened, they were much better prepared than many competitors.
That's the idea. They'd already thought through supply chain issues, operational changes, safety protocols. That planning gave them resilience and agility when the crisis actually unfolded.
Okay, so that's foresight. The paper also talks about specific strategies. One is risk education, but with a nuance about framing.
Right. The key is avoiding that solely negative framing we talked about earlier. Risk education shouldn't just be about compliance or listing potential downsides.
So what should it be about?
It should be about continuous learning, staying informed about emerging trends, geopolitical shifts, market disruptions. Understanding the landscape allows you to spot potential upsides within those changes, not just the threats. It enables proactive strategic thinking instead of reactive crisis management.
Makes sense. Another strategy mentioned is empowering management teams, creating problem response teams. What's the benefit there?
The advantage is speed and focus. If you empower specific teams closer to the ground to act quickly on emerging issues within defined boundaries.
The board doesn't have to get bogged down in every operational detail.
Exactly. The board can stay focused on the bigger strategic picture, knowing that there are mechanisms in place to handle immediate threats or opportunities swiftly and effectively. It reduces the pressure on the board to make impulsive, reactive decisions.
The DCRO Institute also brings in their specific designations, qualified risk directors and qualified risk experts. What role do they play in this strategic approach?
Well, the qualified risk directors are meant to bring that high-level risk governance expertise directly into the boardroom. They focus on integrating risk thinking into strategy and championing what the paper calls the positive governance of risk-taking.
Positive governance of risk-taking, so enabling smart risk, not just stopping bad risk.
That's the core concept. It's about ensuring the organization takes the right risks, the ones aligned with strategy and potential value creation in an informed way.
And the qualified risk experts, how do they fit in?
They often serve on board committees, like the Risk Committee. They bring deeper, more specialized expertise in risk management techniques and frameworks. They provide the detailed analysis and support for that positive governance approach, complementing the strategic oversight role of the qualified risk director.
So one focuses more on the strategic integration, the other on the detailed mechanics and analysis, but both geared towards enabling positive risk-taking.
That seems to be the distinction, yes. Working together to ensure risk is managed strategically, not just defensively.
Okay, so let's try to pull this together. Based on the DCRO Institute's insights, what are the really critical things for an organization aiming to actually thrive in uncertainty, not just survive it?
Well, first is that fundamental mindset shift, seeing risk proactively as a
Yeah.
potential source of value. Then understanding the board's own risk personality and consciously managing group dynamics to avoid groupthink.
Right, actively combating that reactive survival thinking.
Yes, and consistently applying strategic foresight tools like scenario planning. Also crucial is framing risk discussions around achieving goals, not just avoiding losses.
And empowering those response teams for agility.
Definitely. And, of course, having the right risk governance expertise at the board and committee level, like through those qualified risk directors and experts, helps embed this whole approach. It's really a combination of culture, process, and expertise.
The paper seems to suggest this level of uncertainty isn't going away, right? This might just be the new normal.
That's a strong theme. The ability to navigate this constant churn effectively is what will likely separate the truly successful, resilient organizations from the rest.
So leadership is really defined by how well you handle this ongoing uncertainty.
I think so. Boards that really lean into this, understanding the psychology, investing in the right expertise and tools, fostering trust, they're the ones who can turn disruption into an opportunity for genuine innovation and sustained value.
That's a compelling vision. So for you, the listener, maybe the question is, how does your own organization stack up against these ideas? Are you more defensive or strategically opportunistic when it comes to risk?
Yeah, and perhaps what's the one shift, maybe in mindset, maybe in process, that could unlock the biggest strategic advantage for you in this environment?
Good questions to ponder. And for those looking to really develop this capability, either individually or for their board, it's worth knowing that resources and globally recognized credentials do exist to help build that more positive strategic approach to governing risk and ultimately driving corporate value.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing journey, but a crucial one.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.